In this demo, we'll be looking at how to use interceptors in Spring. So this is a continuation of the previous video that we had, that we saw. So make sure that you watch that and understand what we are doing in order to view this one. So how do we add interceptors to Spring? So what do I mean by interceptors? So let's see a working demo of that first. So right now I have the implemented code over here. So let's just see what happens when we try hitting localhost 2020 8080 employee. So we see this message logged over here. So this is just what we had in the previous video. So let's look at the logs that were produced. So in the logs, we can see these three methods over here, right? We can see the preHandle, we can see the postHandle, preHandle, postHandle, and the after completion logs that are produced. So these logs, these are coming from code that we have written. So this is right from here. So currently we have 3 interceptors. So if we look at one of them, we'll see the 3 methods: pre-handle, post-handle, and after completion. And this is what we are seeing in the log as well, right? So if we look at the log, we can see employee interceptor 1, which is present over here, and then the post handle method, which is logging this statement: employee interceptor 1 request intercepted in post handle, which is what is coming on over here, and that is followed by this particular statement that is logged, which is present over here. And this statement over here, this is coming from the actual display of the page, so the JSP page that is being returned to the front end, that is present right over here. We have a controller, and when we hit employee, we are getting this employee home page being returned, and this message is being logged. So this is what we are going to see how we can set up this particular combination in Spring. So let's start setting up our code. First, let us just move this to a new controller class, a controller package. And then we are going to add a new package in which we are going to store our interceptors. And let's have a new interceptor over here, which we are going to call employee interceptor. Okay. So the first step is that we would be extending the HandlerInterceptorAdapter, and this has 3 methods. We are going to override these 3 methods. So these are the 3 methods that we're going to override, but we see the problem over here right now. So right now we do not have javax.servlet library in our library file. So there is no jar file which contains this particular library. So what we'll have to do is that we'll have to import this library first. And the reason we'll have to import this is because right now in our POM file, we are only using Spring MVC, Web MVC, and Spring Web MVC does not pull in the javax.servlet library basically. So I have another, so just to give you an example, I have another demo running over here. So this is another demo which was built using Spring Boot. So let's see. So in Spring Boot, we can basically see that the servlet HTTP is already present, right? So let's try and see what is pulling in this. So this HTTP servlet request class. This is basically present in Apache Tomcat embed library, and this Tomcat is basically being pulled in by Spring Boot Starter Web, right? Spring Boot Starter Web. So we are just looking at the dependency tree over here, using MVN dependency tree. So over here we can see that Tomcat, that Spring Boot, when we include Spring Boot Starter Web, so Spring Boot Starter Web is present over here. So when we include Spring Boot Starter Web in our dependency folder, in our POM XML, that pulls in Spring Boot Starter Tomcat, and that in turn pulls in HTTP servlet request and all that HTTP servlet libraries that we need. So in this particular case, what we can do is that we can just include, so this is basically in the folder. So this is the library, right? javax.servlet.html. So this is what we have included over here. So let's pull in that library first. So we can do that by just searching for Maven. And this is the one that we are going to pick up. And we go back to our POM XML and we add our dependency over here. And let's reload our POM. And now we can see the JavaX servlet library as well over here. So now if we go back to our employee interceptor, we can see that HTTP servlet request is now imported. Let's do this. Okay, so now that the library is imported and we have all the error, we have fixed the path errors, we can move on. So these are the three methods that we are overriding. So these are the interceptors that we will be using: pre-handle, post-handle, and after completion. But and right now you can see that we are just returning the method that is present in the abstract class, and the abstract class basically just has an empty method, so it does not. It just returns true straight away. So anyways, before we go into that, we will need to set up our employee servlet.xml. So over here, we need to define, we need to tell Spring that we have our interceptors ready, for which we want Spring to intercept request to a particular path. Okay, so setting up the interceptors, we just need to do this, interceptors, and inside this, we specify interceptor, and then in here, we have to just specify this. So this basically is the mapping path, which is the employee path at which we want the interceptor to listen to. And then this is the class that is going to handle it. So let's change this to employee.interceptor. And the path is supposed to be interceptors.employee_interceptor. Oops. Interceptors.employee_interceptor. Okay. And let us have this component over here. And this should basically be sufficient. Oh no, wait, of course. So we need some way to log Right. Uh, Let us have this here. I'm going to return true, and let's just have some generic methods which I'm going to copy and paste from here. So right now we are in post handle, and this one is after completion. Okay. So this looks good right now. Let's build and run this. First we will stop. Oops. This one. And let us run this. Hmm. Sorry about that. There was actually some sort of error, it seems. So once I tried cleaning MVN clean and tried building the project again, it seemed to work. So all I did was try and clean and compile the project again, and that seemed to get rid of the issue. So just to show that, let's try hitting localhost 8080 again, and we see hello world. And let's change this to see that we are in fact fetching the new file. So all right. So employee interceptor, right? So we have a pre-handle, post-handle, and an after completion method, and this is how we set up the employee interceptor. Just to recap, what we did was that the first step was to add an interceptor class over here. So an interceptor class which extends this abstract class HandlerInterceptorAdapter. There is a similar class also called HandlerInterceptor, but adapter is better because this allows us to override only those methods which we want to override instead of handler interceptor, in which we basically have to override all of the methods by default. Yeah, so anyways, the first thing that we do is extend this handler interceptor adapter, and then we can override whatever methods that we require. Right over here, we are overwriting the pre-handle, post-handle, and the after completion method. And then in order to tell Spring to override these methods, we need to specify our interceptor, which we are doing over here. There is another, so this completes the first part. Now what we'll do is that we'll try adding multiple interceptors. So there is this concept of interceptor chaining, where what we have is that for one particular path, what we do is that we pass it through a sequence of a chain of interceptors, and the final page is displayed only if each of the interceptors basically return true. So what we have basically is right over here, right? We have this true being returned. So if any of the pre-handle interceptors fails in the chain, then the view is not returned by default. So the view is only returned if all of the pre-handled interceptors return true. So how can we go about doing that? Well, it's pretty simple. We just need to replicate this code. So I'll just create 2 copies of this class, interceptor2 and interceptor3. Actually, let's copy this. Interceptor2 and apply interceptor3, and let's rename this to apply interceptor1. Let's just rename this so that we have the correct names over here. Oops, this is the third one, sorry. 3, 3, 3. This is 2. This is 1. Okay. Next thing we need to do is we need to do the same thing in employee servlet XML, where we have this interceptor over here. We need to just add in the methods 2 and 3. So this would come over here, right? So the sequence of chaining is pretty simple in itself. So because we have specified the order as 1, 2, and then 3, it will be the interceptor 1 that will be executed first, followed by 2, followed by 3. So let's verify that that is in fact what happens. So let's redeploy this. Okay, the redeploy is complete. Let's try hitting this endpoint. AT works. We need to hit employee, and employee is working. So let's look at the logs. Okay. So when we look at the logs, we can see that the pre-handle methods are being called in this particular order, where you have employee interceptor 1, then 2, then 3 of the pre-handle method being called, right, for this particular URI. So let's verify that that is in fact what is happening. So we have employee servlet XML, right? And we have employee interceptor 1, employee interceptor 2, and 3. So the order should be 1, 2, and 3. And when we go over here, we can in fact see that the pre-handle employee interceptor 1 followed by 2, and that is followed by 3, right? And that is what we see in this over here as well, right? So we have the pre-handle methods that are called sequentially 1, 2, 3. That is then followed by the message employee controller reached employee page, which is our controller finally reaching over here, and reached employee page, which is present over here, which is what is happening over here in the controller class. And that is followed by the reverse order for the post handle method 3, 2, 1, and that is followed by the after completion, which is 3, 2, 1. So the order is just reversed in the case of post handle and after completion methods. So just to show you that the order is in fact that, let us try changing the order to something different. Let us try this. Let us have 3 at the beginning, followed by 1, and then followed by 2. So now it should be employee interceptor 3 that should be triggered first. Let us just see if that is in fact the case. So now we are expecting the order to be employee interceptor 3, then 1, then 2 when preHandle is being called, and then in the post handle and the after completion method we would expect 2, 1 and 3. So let's see that that is in fact what is happening. Let's try hitting this endpoint again. Okay. Alright, so remember the order 3, 1, 2, right? Okay, and that is in fact what we see over here, right? So we have employee interceptor 3 followed by 1, then 2 for the preHandle methods. Then we have the page being shown over here, the reached employee page. And then the exact reverse of that order, 213 and then 213 for the post handle and the after completion methods respectively, right? Right. So this shows that the order is in fact the same as what is shown as the order that is mentioned over here. Let's revert the order over here. So now let's see what happens when one of these actually returns false. So what do I mean by that? For the preHandle, suppose there was some other computation that was going on over here and that computation basically failed. So we had to return a value of false in this case. So let's see what would have happened in that case. And let's try hitting that endpoint again. And you see that we do not see anything displayed over here, right? So this is what we are expecting. And then we go on over here, and in the logs, remember we changed the order, right? So it's 1, 2, 3 back again. But now over here you can see that after 1, 2, 3, immediately we had after completion being called over here. So we have preHandle and then we have after completion. But okay, so this was the correct understanding. So what we understood was that if there in interceptor number 3 we were basically returning false. So because we returned false, the post handle method is not executed. Instead we directly jump to the after completion method, and the after completion method of the last handler that was successfully executed was interceptor 2. So that is why we are now executing the after completion method of employee interceptor 2. So what this means is that had this been true, and suppose the post handler method let's suppose this was false, then in that particular case let's see what would have happened. Let's try hitting that endpoint again. Okay, so we did not expect anything to display it. And over here we see the preHandle of 1 and then the preHandle of 2, and then that is immediately followed by the after completion of interceptor 1. So let's see what would have happened if we had ran into an exception over here. So this is true, and we are throwing a new exception in the post-handle method. So what would have happened in this case? Okay, hmm. So this is probably because we are logging this first. All right. So what is happening is that the pre-handle got executed in the order 1, 2, and then 3. Then we moved on to 3 and 2. But because we threw an exception, this ran into an exception. So that is why the post handle of 1 was never executed. And instead we directly jump to the after completion of employee interceptor 3, then 2, then 1. Okay. All right.